Bruce, you better wait here. I'll be back in 10 minutes.
Even 10 minutes is a long time to be away from you.
Welcome scholars and guests to our opening ceremony. We are thrilled to be streaming live to you as we kick off Scholar Institute. My name is Neil Grimes, Director of Scholar Institutes and Curriculum at Golden Apple. I am broadcasting to you from our satellite office in North Aurora. I'm happy to invite all of you into my home today. I haven't been to a house party this big since my days at ISU on Willow Street. We have scholars attending SI 1 through 3, Virtual Scholar Institute contractors, and supportive members of our community wanting to share in the excitement by tuning in. This is the first time we've been able to do all of this together. It's really exciting. If you're participating with us this summer, take a selfie watching opening ceremonies in the activity feed in the app. It'd be great to start seeing all of us from across the state. This is normally a time for us to reflect back on learning from previous Scholar Institutes and to get ready for new teaching, learning, and reflecting experiences for this year. It's still hard for me to process how much the world has changed in the last 4 months. It's been helpful for me and my colleagues to lean into each other for support, encouragement, and for fun during this time. We've planned Virtual Scholar Institute with the same intent. Transitioning virtually presented many individual and systemic growth areas for us. It's been great hearing from many of you throughout the past few months. We've heard from members of our Academy of Educators, completed scholars, teaching scholars, and undergraduate scholars with advice on how to build this out. Thank you so much. In the YouTube chat, feel free to give props to GAPLs who have supported you along the way. Think about your past liaisons, reflective seminar and class instructors, leads, scholars, everyone. Feel free to share some GA love now. This has been a collective effort from all of us. It's a great reminder how powerful community and family connections can be. While we know there may be some technological bumps along the way, it's great knowing we will continue to learn, teach, and reflect together to prepare us for students across Illinois. Over the past few summers, we've expressed the importance of having a growth mindset, the idea that learning isn't fixed and we can continue to grow skills over time. For me personally, last year my growth mindset mainly surrounded my ultimate Frisbee abilities. I couldn't believe Alan literally threw the Frisbee with all 4 limbs, and I also don't understand why I could never be on his team, but I digress. This summer, it'll be essential for us to be flexible and open to nuances. We are living in a time where our growth mindset is increasingly essential. All of us will have ample opportunity to learn, reflect, and grow this summer. This is a positive new experience for us. If you're feeling a little anxious, remember, there's a community here to support you. So let's get into our goals. These seem right, or these seem to make sense, right? You're going to be demonstrating your skills, whether that's at on-site for SI3 or within your reflective groups with Scholar Teach lessons. You're also going to be designing digital resources. So we're going to have you create a civic engagement lesson in the content you'll be certified to teach in. So you'll be able to practice and create some asynchronous lessons. And of course, we're going to build and maintain a professional network of scholars and just a Golden Apple community that will be here to support you. Let's transition to talk about the calendar a little bit. You should be able to see your calendar through your app on your phone or on a computer. The column on the left are live asynchronous opportunities, and on the right are experiences you'll learn on your own within small group. These are asynchronous. You are always welcome to reach out to scholars to support you with assignments. You can message other scholars and instructors through the app. We have coordinated your professional learning communities, or PLCs, for you. Your PLCs are designed to be peer support throughout the 3 weeks. Like last year, it's all scholar-led. You manage the agenda. Please see the Professional Learning Community tab for more information. We've selected SI3 scholars to start reaching out and organizing your first meeting for a time that works for your small group. This group are across different SIs with scholars with the same major. Referring back to the live sessions, if they're listed here, your attendance is expected. After speaking with many of you over the weekend, I will have a more detailed list of attendance expectations by tomorrow morning uploaded into the app. Please make sure to attend all reflective seminar and core competency coursework, including career prep. Each Golden Apple core competency has a performance task associated with it. A performance task is a way for you to demonstrate your learning. As a teacher, you'll be creating similar tasks to assess your student skill level. You will be working on these tasks individually or in small groups this summer. Each performance task has written directions to help explain it, and I'll pop in video messaging in there as well. I will be hosting a few sessions to explain how to complete your Scholar Growth Tool and complete the Civic Engagement Performance task throughout the first 2 weeks of SI. Please attend if you'd like to discuss them. If you need further support, first ask a couple of scholars to explain it to you or within your PLC. If you still need support, which is totally fine, ask your reflective seminar. Depending on your time with us, you've heard many strategies to personalize learning for your students. This summer, we've created many learner-led opportunities. This asynchronous work you'll be completing will give you an opportunity to create tools that will be useful for you and your future students. Let me explain how the rest of the opening ceremony is going to flow. I'm going to bring in different members of our team to help me welcome you and further explain VSI. I also bet you didn't think that GA couldn't think of any more acronyms, did you? After we hear from a few staff members, we'll hear from an educational leader panel who will discuss virtual best practices of remote learning. That's going to be facilitated by our president, Al Mather. Afterwards, we'll transition to hearing from teaching scholars in their early years of teaching about their personal experience with remote learning. And that's going to be facilitated by Rosie Patel, our manager of mentoring. You do not have to transition using a different link for these panels. Everything's going to be on this YouTube link. All right, Ziggy Blackwell, let's hear from you. Can you introduce our recruitment team?
All right, thank you, Neil. Hello, scholars. I might be a familiar face to some of you, mainly our newly inducted scholars, but to all of our scholars joining throughout the state, my name is Ziggy Blackwell, Director of Recruitment. I will soon complete my first year here at Golden Apple, and with that, I have some exciting news to share with you all. But first, I do want to recognize the entire scholar recruitment team. First, Norman De La Rosa, Manager of Recruitment and Scholar Support, and Rocio Manriquez, Assistant Director of Selection and Program Coordination. Rocio and Norma, thank you so much for your consistent work ethic and your teamwork attitude to bring in such a strong 2020 Scholar class. But my exciting news to share with everyone joining is to talk about the recruitment year. This year, we are seeing record interest in the Scholars Program. We received nearly 2,000 applications, which was a 17% increase from last year, and we are accepting approximately 300 new scholars into the program, which is our largest class in history. Exciting news. Yet our goal is to continue to increase the Scholars Program. To help meet this goal, I am extending my hand. If you would like to get involved with new scholar recruitment at your campus, please let me know. If you are not sure what to discuss or how to promote the program, or if you have never planned an event at your campus, don't worry. We have a new scholar recruitment toolkit to help you get started. Later this fall, you can expect to hear more details on the new scholar recruitment toolkit and how you can access that resource. Back to SI, Scholar Institute. I do want to share our attendance expectations. First, I do acknowledge that this is a unique year of virtual learning, but we still have expectations. To maximize this experience and the experience of your fellow scholars, full participation is expected. That means to have your camera on, to also be prepared to mute yourself when you are not speaking, but there will be times where your camera will not be needed and you will have to keep yourself on mute or activate your audio, but those guidelines will be shared in advance. If you have an unexpected conflict that requires you to be absent, or if you experience any technology issues, please email your reflective seminar instructor or Neil with those issues. I hope you all have a fantastic Scholar Institute. And with that, I would like to introduce my colleague, Kristen Lane, Director of Research, Analytics, and Accountability. Kristen?
Thank you, Ziggy. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to get started on SI 2020. As Ziggy said, my name is Kristen Lane. I'm the Director of Research, Analytics, and Accountability. I'm also your go-to person for all things Golden Apple SI 2020 web portal and app. By now, you should have all have received an email with a personalized link to access the web portal and the app. The link is personalized to you, so don't use anyone else's or use your link from last year. All of the good stuff is in the link in this email that you've received. And since we are 100% virtual this year, we recommend that you access all of the information via your computer and the web portal. Once you get there, once you get to the website, bookmark it. This way you can keep it up, leave the website up the entire time in one tab, and then you can attend all of your virtual events in another tab. The web-based application is recommended. The app is still available for you as well. I'd like to point out a couple of features you'll see once you're in the web portal. First, in the top right, you'll see if you have any sort of new notifications. Make sure you check these for all of the updated info. So again, top right where the little bell is, you're going to see some new notifications popping up today after these sessions. So this can include some featured sessions coming up, maybe some pre-work. So keep an eye up on the right corner for any sort of new notifications. On the left, there are a ton of resources you'll need over the next few weeks. I want to highlight a few important ones. Under schedule, you will see both all sessions and my schedule. Please use all sessions. Everything under all sessions should be tailored to you. Along the top, you're going to see dates. Under each date, you will see all of your sessions listed, and make sure you scroll down. There's a bunch of things listed there. So scroll down to see everything that is listed. When you click on one of these sessions, you can access the links to your meetings and all of the materials that you'll need, like your pre-work. And some of the sessions will also have a link to a survey. Please fill out the surveys. Your feedback has a direct impact on the changes that we make for SI. We read it, we read all of your feedback. We want to hear from you. Please fill them out. I promise they're really quick. Continuing through, also on the left-hand side, you can see an attendees icon to search for any other scholars, speakers, someone else in your Golden Apple world. This is going to be really helpful when you're connecting with your PLC or your personal learning communities that Neil mentioned earlier, those group members. You can find your group and message each other without sharing numbers or emails. You can also schedule your PLC meetings through the web portal by creating appointments. So look under the PLC icon for your group members. Along the left-hand side, you're going to find so many icons like that. All of the documents, the resources, pre-work, scavenger hunt games, all of it are here, including our activity feed. Under the activity feed, you'll see an event feed and a social wall. On our event feed, we will have all of your posts, pictures, your virtual classroom selfies, all here in the app. So if you're looking for friends, you want to form a group to play Animal Crossing, talk about last night's Golden Apple meditation session, you can find all of that here. You can post that here. It's only seen in our event. It's not in other places on the internet. And shout out to Stephen and Lydia. I already see first opening ceremony posts, so thanks. The social wall, the other tab, pulls in all Golden Apple Twitter posts, so don't forget our hashtags. Take time to explore all of the resources and all of the fun in the SI 2020 web portal, and please let me know if you need any assistance at all. I'd like to now turn it over to Dr. Talia Reamer.
Good morning. My name is Talia Reamer. I am a class of 1993 Golden Apple Scholar, and I am also the Director of Placement and Alumni Supports. I, along with Mrs. Jasmine Jones, make sure that once you graduate, you will land a position in a school that is a best fit for you and also allows you to fulfill your commitment to Golden Apple. We also make sure that once you complete that commitment, you have multiple opportunities to remain engaged in the work of the Golden Apple Foundation. Because here at Golden Apple, we begin with the end in mind, we start your career prep work from the very first day of Scholar Institute. We will support you in preparing to enter the classroom by helping you to explore schools of need throughout the state, helping you to prepare a best, most effective resume as a new teacher, getting you ready to interview, whether it's virtually or in person, teaching you about what to look for in selecting a first school or a district in which to work. And we will also connect you with professionals and administrators throughout the state who are specifically interested in hiring Golden Apple scholars just like you. So let's take a look at the breakdown across all of your Virtual Scholar Institute courses. In Career Prep 1, our focus will be a deep dive on what it means to work at a school of need. We will examine Golden Apple's definition of a school of need, as well as your commitment to work in a school of need. For your performance task, you will complete a comparative analysis of 2 different schools of needs, focusing on the supports that they offer their students in order to help them be successful. At Career Prep 2, we will get you ready for your practicum and clinical experiences by being intentional and setting data targets for collection in the classroom. We will also talk more about what factors you should consider when selecting a first teaching position and how to decline a teaching position once you are offered. Your performance task at the end of Career Prep 2 will be to construct a decision-making matrix that will support you in selecting your first teaching position. Career Prep 3 is all about getting ready for job search. We will guide you in crafting the best new teacher resume that you can to set you apart from the rest of the competition. We will guide you in highlighting your strengths and what makes you stand out as a scholar. Then you will get interviewing advice from the administrators themselves. You will participate in a panel discussion with leaders throughout the state who will tell you exactly what they're looking for in interviews. After that, you will complete a virtual mock interview upon which you will receive feedback. Your performance task for Career Prep 3 will be to submit your revised resume and finish the virtual mock interview. We are looking forward to working with you this summer. We are looking forward to seeing you at all of our Career Prep courses, and we hope you have a golden time with us this summer at Virtual Scholar Institute. I would now like to introduce the Manager of Academic, Social, and Emotional Supports, none other than our very own Mr. Jordan Landfair.
Thank you, Talia. It's always a joy to get to work with you. So the first problem I have is I'm between the person that helps prepare you for jobs, that gets you started on fulfilling your commitment and make sure that you're adequately invested in the school that you find, and the person that you all really want to see when you hear about academic and social emotional supports, more commonly known as Cheryl Flores. So you will have to bear with me for just a minute. What I'm really excited to announce is that we heard you. And not just in your calls for more time in coursework, not just for your calls in more transparency and communication, but in this fundamental belief that we needed to move past making teachers and working with organizations that just were not racist and moving towards actual anti-racist work. For those of you who aren't familiar with the stance that Golden Apple released, we acknowledge that a lot of the social ills, in fact, all of them, hit all students. But the students that we are preparing you all to serve, the students that all of the completed scholars that the reflective leads have been called to work with, are disproportionately impacted. And so our work has to extend to not only protect them, but to prepare you to understand the world that they will have to navigate. It's because of this that I'm excited to announce that on July 13th, we'll be hosting Day of Dialogue, meaning that you will get to choose from 6 different discussions centering diversity, equity, inclusion, and identity. And they may seem familiar because, again, we hear you, we see you. We're constantly working to be better, not just for ourselves, but for you and the students who so desperately need you. Those topics that we've pulled together are sourced from the Scholar Voice Survey that you completed. They're taken from the conversations that you've had with Cheryl, Neil, when we're on campus, and the communication you've sent via email to our team. They're taken from every bit of communication you've given us and let us know where we need to do more and push harder. And it's all centered around this idea of who do we need to be as an organization, and who do your students need you to be? What we're really hoping you get is that we are hoping that it's more than just the books. It's more than just the articles that we've shared with you. It's more than just the things on the website, but that by the act of discussing it with our award-winning teachers, with our community, with us, you feel the growth that's so desperately needed in times like this. Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we are in a unique space and a unique opportunity. But I know the same thing that made me a scholar, the same thing that made me hopeful to be a Crystal Apple recipient, the same thing that made me overjoyed and full of tears when I got to accept this job is our community and our love for what education can do and be. And so I'm really looking forward to spending the Day of Dialogue with you, for getting your feedback, for hopefully, if we do this right, making it a continual part of our development and growth of future teachers. And with that, I can give you all what you really wanted, which is my director, the person I get to talk to more times than not throughout the day, Cheryl Flores, our Director of Academic and Social Emotional Supports.
Hello, scholars, and welcome to SI. As you can tell, I'm super excited for the first day of SI and what we have planned for all of you. If you haven't realized it at this point, we really do listen to your feedback and take it to heart and how we can improve the scholar experience for all of you. And as Jordan mentioned, one of the things that we heard loud and clear from all of you was the need to create space for underrepresented groups within the Scholars Program. And because of your input, this summer, we have provided spaces for affinity groups. Affinity groups are spaces for scholars who share a particular identity, and you'll have an opportunity to meet at least twice within SI. We're hoping to gain input again from you on how we can sustain these groups throughout the school year and what specific supports you all need from us. Secondly, these past couple of months have been life-changing for many. And because of that, we knew that at this particular SI, your emotional well-being would be extremely important to address. Because of that, we've scheduled guided meditation sessions, yoga sessions, provided journaling prompts, and additionally, in the app, you'll see on the left-hand side, mental health resources and hotline numbers. Please use these if you need to. Additionally, if you find yourself with needing additional supports, please know that we are here for you. I'm a call away, a text message away, an email away. And lastly, we know that what makes SI so meaningful, so engaging, and fun is the opportunity to build relationships with your peers across cohorts and within cohorts. And because of that, we've also made sure we schedule fun activities for all of you, again, based on your feedback, like open mic night and trivia night. I've seen many of your talents, and I'm hoping to see all of you at those evening sessions as well. So now I again look forward to seeing many of you these next couple of weeks, and I will hand it off to the mentoring team. Rosie Patel, Kisa Thurman Stovall, and Anne Roll.
Thank you, Cheryl. Good afternoon, scholars. Well, almost afternoon, but welcome, welcome, welcome to the launch of a virtual Scholar Institute. My name is Rosie Patel, and like Cheryl said, I am the manager of mentoring and a fellow. We also have Kisa Thurman Stovall, who's the director, and Ann Morgan Rowell on the team. All three of us share a passion to support rising and novice teachers in the classroom. All of us at Golden Apple want to see you sustain yourself in this incredible profession and see you get that crystal apple. The two biggest components of a successful teacher induction program are professional development and mentoring. Incorporated into each Scholar Institute are the elements of PD that will bridge your learning. And mentoring will support you as you launch yourself and settle into your role as a practicing teacher. Mentoring will begin the first day of SI4, where we will make sure you start to foster a relationship with your mentor, hone your teaching skills to make you a more effective educator, and ultimately get you to your crystal apple and beyond. These supports stay with you during the first 2 years of teaching and truly start at SI4. We are evolving and thrilled to launch Scholar Institute virtually. The thing about teachers, and especially scholars, is that when called upon to be innovative while simultaneously keep learning going, they just make it happen. This Scholar video is evident of the entrancing experience of SI. Let's have an impromptu watch party. Whenever you see someone you recognize in the video, including yourself, drop a note in the comment section.
There is a growing crisis in Illinois and across the nation. Students are increasingly denied the benefits of learning from highly effective educators as more than 1,000 teaching positions remain unfilled annually. Teacher vacancies exceed 1,400, translating into tens of thousands of students without a qualified teacher, the single most important factor to student learning outside of parents.
I have found classrooms that have been vacant of licensed teachers for 2 years. I have heard of small rural schools that have lost a third of their teachers in the first week of school.
In Illinois, 85% of school superintendents report difficulty filling teacher positions, and 79% report significantly fewer qualified applicants. Even worse today, new teachers rarely stay in teaching longer than 4 years.
It's students looking you in the face and saying, I don't have to listen because you're probably not going to make it past December. None of my other teachers did.
We're going to need a unique set of solutions to solve this problem in Illinois. There's one program that does it well beyond any other, and clearly it's the Golden Apple Foundation.
Golden Apple Scholars, a proven answer to the escalating teacher shortage crisis. Aspiring teachers are recruited and are prepared for success in challenging school settings. Joining the program right out of high school or early college, scholars are diverse, talented, accomplished, and driven to be agents of change.
I've always wanted to be a teacher ever since I was shown the power that teachers have. When I was in 6th grade, I had my first teacher that looked like me. I had my first black teacher. She was like the first example that I could do something in the world and influence others. Being able to influence people to be the best that they can be, showing people that they can achieve whatever they want to achieve, that's all that I'm about.
In Illinois, teachers of color comprise only 15% of the public school teaching workforce. Golden Apple Scholars reflect the students they teach, and many return to teach in their own communities.
I lived in the same house my whole life. I'm teaching at a school that's literally down the street. Like, I know this community, I know this school is huge.
These are high potential young people, students of color, first generation in their family to attend college. We're not only changing their life and the lives of their students, we're changing the future generations of their family.
Through innovative programs, instruction, and mentoring, Golden Apple transforms teachers and teaching.
We find those young people who have that passion, that mission to become great teachers. We provide services, we provide talent, we provide expertise that's not provided anywhere else, so that our teachers are going to come in day one ready to teach.
Scholars log hundreds of hours of teaching in a variety of urban, rural, and suburban schools before their first teaching position, ensuring every scholar is prepared to serve the unique needs of students across Illinois.
Chicago Public Schools partners with the Golden Apple Scholars Program because we've been able to recruit some well-trained teachers, but also teachers who meet the needs of our students in some of our most underserved schools.
More than 80% of principals surveyed agree Golden Apple Scholars are better prepared to teach on day one than new teachers prepared by any other program. 97% of principals surveyed want and need more scholars.
They know that if they come from the Scholars Program, regardless of the circumstances that are thrown at that teacher, they know they're going to be successful in the classroom.
When you have outstanding teachers in a classroom, the whole world opens up to students. You have students who are otherwise disengaged who become engaged.
Expert instruction at Scholar Institutes focuses on trauma-informed training, personalized learning, and civic engagement, ensuring scholars develop the skills needed to thrive in the 21st century classroom. Curriculum partnerships with Lurie's Trauma-Informed Training, LEAP Innovations, Facing History and Ourselves, and the Erickson Institute for Early Education prepare our scholars to teach effectively in high-needs schools.
Students are facing so much that we just don't even realize and we don't even know. They're in such a vulnerable state, and it's scary. Lurie's training has been so vital.
Teacher preparation programs don't equip teachers with the skills and the tools they need to understand what happens to a child when they grow up in poverty. The Golden Apple Scholars Program equips teachers to understand what it takes to turn that situation around one student at a time.
The intensive preparation, support, and mentoring that is provided results in scholars staying in teaching longer than educators prepared by any other program. While enrollment in Illinois colleges of education has declined drastically, Golden Apple Scholars has experienced exponential growth.
I know that the Golden Apple Foundation has continuously put forward solutions to many of the deep challenges we face in public education in the state. And I'm confident that that's going to continue for years to come.
We must do better for Illinois students in high-need schools. To deliver more highly effective educators to classrooms, the Scholars Program must continue to grow. Golden Apple is committed to doubling the size of the Scholars Program by 2024. Golden Apple Scholars, the proven solution to the Illinois teacher shortage crisis.
Hey everybody, Alan Mather here. We know that Neil had us in his satellite office in North Aurora. I'm coming to you from the south side of Chicago in the Hyde Park neighborhood. It's wonderful to see you. Before we get started on our panel, just wanted to have a brief opportunity for you to get up and stretch. So right now, 30 seconds for a dance party. Get up and dance.
Thanks for that, Alan. Gotta love the spontaneous dance party. So we're really excited about this educational panel, as if we could transition to anything like that. But yeah, so I just want to bring out Alan. He's going to introduce our educational panel. We're going to start addressing the elephant in the room right now. How did this last semester go with remote learning?
Thanks so much, Neil. And thanks for everybody who got up and danced just for a moment. You do need those breaks every once in a while, as you know. So this is an incredibly important time and an incredibly important topic. So what's going to happen is we're going to talk a little bit about, as Neil said, the elephant in the room, remote learning, what this means, how we prepare for it, how we help students in this environment. And to do that, we brought experts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the first question, and then I will introduce each of the experts we have to talk a little bit about it from their perspective. So you're hearing now from a principal, from members of the LEAP team, and whom I hope you know by now. But let's start off with question number one, which is, there is no doubt that this has been a challenging time to be a student as well as to be a teacher. I think if we asked you, our scholars right now, some of you would mention that perhaps some of your classes were less than engaging this past semester. So, we are aware that there are barriers and what many of those barriers are as they relate to remote learning. So what we're going to ask each of the panelists is, when reflecting on this past semester, what were some of the successful strategies that their teachers used and that they were able to support those teachers to deliver? So I'm going to start off introducing Stacy Stewart. She is the principal of Belmont Cragin, is a 2018 recipient of the Golden Apple Award for Excellence in School Leadership. She's been in the Chicago Public Schools for 27 years and has led Belmont Cragin Elementary School for 10 of those years. During that time, she's improved learning at Belmont Cragin by using an approach that combines personalized learning with dual language education and a focus on social and emotional learning as well. As the principal of Belmont Cragin, a community school of 575 pre-K through 8th graders, which includes more than 90% who qualify for free and reduced lunch and 68% who are English language learners, she tackles all the challenges to ensure that all staff and students can achieve. To close the achievement gap, she's worked with LEAP Innovations to increase personalized learning practices with a focus on professional development that prepares teachers for the new instructional approach. Belmont Cragin currently is recognized nationally as an Ashoka Changemaker School with a Gold Circle NAEYC accredited early childhood center. So now I will turn it over to Stacy to respond.
Hey, Alan, thank you so much for that intro, and congratulations to all the scholars. So happy to be here with you guys. One of the things that came out of this pandemic was the emphasis on, who are we really working with? So when I work with the teachers and looking at this remote learning scenario that none of us were prepared for, one of the things we thought was very helpful was surveying the students. So one, where are all of our children in terms of accessibility to technology, accessibility to Wi-Fi, what platforms, learning management systems can we use to help support the students for learning at home, but also thinking about their modalities of learning. And so it was really helpful for us to that first few weeks to survey the children, survey their parents, and then we use that information to create their new virtual learning experience. It wasn't just solely kids working independently, but also teachers had to schedule times to work with students in small groups and whole groups across content areas. So I think that really did help a lot. And the other thing that was very important during this time, because it was such a scary time and still is for children, is the importance of social and emotional learning. So teachers were also able to schedule class meetings on a daily basis with children. They really look forward to that. We also had virtual meetings with parents as well to address challenges they may need. And teachers were able to use that information to get feedback from kids on what their next steps would be for learning. So if a child didn't know how to log in to a platform, the teachers would make how-to videos. So they made their own YouTube channels. Teachers are reading stories to children virtually every day and asking questions for feedback. And so with us having so many different types of learners, it really helped us to more personalize their experience, but having the students as those users in mind.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Thanks leading this work. I know it's been incredibly challenging, but no one better to do this right now. Thank you. So now I will introduce Kristen Eng. She is a senior manager of school supports at LEAP Innovations. And for those of you who don't know, LEAP stands for Learning Exponentially Advancing Potential. So Kristen is a former Chicago Public School educator and administrator who partnered with LEAP to ensure that students reach their full potential at her school. At LEAP, she now works to create change via LEAP's programming team. So Kristen, how would you respond to that?
Thanks, Alan. So I'm really excited to be here. So welcome, scholars. So, Stacy had mentioned a lot already in regards to morning meetings and having, virtual opportunities where the parents and the students are engaging with their teachers. While I was working with teachers and our team was working with teachers, we were really helping the teachers to really set up what small group meetings should look like and be. I know that Stacy had talked about the platform, so using Google Classroom, the G Suite education where there's like Google Meets, Google Hangouts, and then also there's a lot of our teachers using apps like Flipgrid and Jamboard for students to explain their thinking. And so with those, students were able to engage in different ways and at their own pace. And along with that, we were working with the teachers to create choice menus to meet the needs of the different home environments and resources available. So I know, if you see in my background, I've got a word wall behind me and I have 2 kids at home. So being an educator and, it's hard where, you don't know what the situations are at home. And so, for my girls, like their teachers had set up times where like we're going to have office hours and we're going to make sure that like your choice menu has the options to ensure that things that are graded are handed in on time and being clear with those expectations. So those choice menus were really foundational and essential in this time where students really needed, to be able to pace and learn at their own pace because of what has been happening at home. We don't know what's happening at home. And so as much as we can, we want to give the students the choice and the opportunity, not only for the students, but for the parents, because we also know parents were also working at this time and what their needs are as well.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Just thinking about students showing their learning is just so different in a virtual environment, and showing how they're thinking through things is it's something that we're going to get to, I think, in the next question. But first, I want to have a chance for Connie Scalzetti, who's the personalized learning manager at LEAP. She is a former middle school teacher and instructional coach who transformed learning experiences for her students and teachers with LEAP. Now at LEAP, Connie works with teachers to create learning experiences that are relevant, rigorous, and engaging. So Kristen.
Thanks, Alan. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'll just add on to what Kristen and Stacy talked about. I really encouraged the teachers that I worked with for the second half of this year to try and replicate what they did in the classroom, the things that were working so well for them. Kristen and Stacy spoke to morning meetings, but really trying to get FaceTime with your students to see what's going on with them, to see how you can help them, trying to just replicate those in-class experiences. One of the big things that I encouraged our teachers to continue with was using their EdTech data to pull those small groups for instruction. So whether a student was struggling on a particular topic or skill, only sending a Google invite or Zoom invite to those students, so that 1, it created that small sense of community, but 2, you were then still able to pinpoint and target exactly what those students needed in a small group setting while still replicating that, that interaction, that face-to-face. So really just trying to get at the heart of what's going on. How do I, as an educator, be flexible? Because we're no longer in that timing where math happens at this time and reading happens at this time, but how do I work with my students and my parents to try and provide everything that I did in the classroom, just in a remote setting?
Thanks so much. This yes, has been such a challenging time. And, you know, we know that remote learning itself creates lots of challenges. In fact, we've heard so much about, you know, the lack of devices that some students have and how districts have had to get devices out to students. We've also heard that some students may have devices but not have any access to Wi-Fi, which of course makes this particularly challenging. So one is how students are connected, and the other is whether they are. And in this, you know, we've all talked about preparing teachers. And we know that some teachers are certainly more prepared than others. So I'd like this question to go to Stacy as a school leader. You know, one of our core competencies is instructional best practices. And at Golden Apple, part of what we do is, you know, prepare them for those instructional best practices. And what we've been doing is in a traditional classroom. But what are the instructional best practices to engage students in virtual learning? How do you, as a school leader, prepare your teachers in those best practices in a virtual environment?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. Thanks, Alan. So how do you prepare? I mean, right now, I feel like I'm a general in a war, and we have to teach fearlessly at Belmont Cragin and in our country if we are to eliminate these barriers, and we talked about those. So what this has forced us to do is to really look at a different lens as we're approaching instruction for our students. And so using those learning management systems, those platforms, whatever, whether it be Khan Academy, whatever you're using that information to be real prescriptive about what students are needing. And then those same best practices like conferring with students, those things still have to take place in a remote environment. So that's really critical. Also, giving children multiple opportunities to learn content is really important. So they may not just get it in the Google Classroom. You may have to do a how-to video and give the child a link to the video so they can walk through step by step. And then you may have to even provide additional manipulatives for those students. So if students needed additional supplies, we provided those for them to access the content. If there were everyday items they could use at home to replicate science experiments or replicate math concepts, even if it's kitchen math, we gave them the space to do that. And so when you empower your children in this pandemic, that's how you teach fearlessly. The other thing that was really important is assessment. And so when the teachers conferred with the students and having that space, it also gave the children the opportunity to assess how I'm doing on my pathway, how am I growing? And it also gave them pause for reflection in terms of what do I need to do for my next steps? The teacher also got to see, well, you know, this child particularly performed this way, this strategy worked for this student, and this is what we're going to continue to do. And so again, I think the biggest thing that we learned from this whole experience is just the importance of listening and really looking at the data that we get from the children every day, that we see them on a screen or they turn in an assignment, to really discern how they're learning and how they're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Stacy. And I just think, you know, one of the things you did so brilliantly is when this happened, your teachers were prepared because of the work you've been doing. And I just think about teachers in so many places who had barely touched a computer and then had to move to this. So kudos to you.
I'm sorry, Alan, I forgot to mention one last thing. The teachers who didn't know how to do certain technology platforms proficiently, they were paired with other teachers. And so they formed their own PLC. So if you didn't know Google Classroom or Google Meets, then I had a teacher partner to help you with that. If you didn't know how to do Seesaw to help our younger students or Nearpod, we had a cohort that met with that. And so I will have to also say, when you're in the trenches, you have to look to the left and the right and find those folks that will help you get over those hurdles so that we can all work together for the benefit of the kids. I forgot to mention that was critical.
Thank you. Yes, that would be, and we hope that the community that we have here as Golden Apple Scholars and Fellows, is they'll be able to support one another in that same way if they don't have a leader like you. This next question is for everyone, because while the transition to virtual learning was challenging, the transition back is also going to be a challenge for some, whether we're talking about primary or high school, right? There have been academic losses, but there are also, and you all touched on this earlier, on social and emotional issues that are going to have to be dealt with when we get back into in-person learning. And some people are going to definitely start in-person learning earlier than others. So this is a two-part question. So I don't know, anybody can take both parts or one part or the other. You know, Stacy mentioned the small group work and work with parents to help with SEL. We heard the same thing from LEAP about the supports that were put in place. But what educational and social and emotional supports will be needed for students to have a successful reentry back into school? And if there is a way to get them back into school, how can that also be delivered remotely? So open that up to anyone on the panel.
That is a very big question. That is a very big question, and it's a good question. And it's something that we're all thinking about. You know, I'm sure Stacy's thinking about it as she's planning over the summer, and we are too at LEAP as we're working with CPS to really figure out, like, and other school districts that we work with, like, what this means. And so, you know, for me, when I think about this question, it really goes to that social emotional support. And so when, as you know, as a parent, as an educator, and also as, you know, working at LEAP, I think it's really important that, you know, parents and students first, like, know what those expectations are. So whenever the school district is ready to provide those guidelines and what that means, I think it's going to be really important to set, like, clear expectations so that students feel comfortable that, like, they may have to go to school in a mask, they may not have to, like, when they come back, you know, it's going to look a little different. And so I think anything that the school districts and schools can communicate to the parents and the students, if applicable, I think is going to be really important with that. And also I think, like, as teachers in day one, you're going to have to start setting up, like, daily meetings to build those classroom culture, and really talking about, you know what, like, school's going to look different. And we understand that, but you know what, I'm so glad you're here building those relationships. Those are going to be really important day one. And it's going to probably continue whether you're in person or not, like, multiple weeks into the school year, because there is a lot of trauma that our students have faced during this pandemic. Some of their family members may have died from COVID, and some of, you know, maybe their parents were working, and so there is just, like, this uphill battle that they've had to face. And so I think that it's just really important for teachers to call that out and start building that culture in day one.
Yeah, Kristen, I'd have to agree with you. Not only is this SEL piece going to just sort of permeate throughout the entire year, but I think this is a perfect time for our educators to really lean into their flexibility and really lean into the data that they have and be strategic about what they're doing and who they're doing it for. As we know, our kids are going to have significant loss coming back into the classroom or being virtual, depending on what kind of model that our schools use. And so this is a great opportunity for our teachers to rely on that data to really make sure the instruction that they're giving is tailored to that individual student, not just thinking about a curriculum or a scope and sequence, but what does this student need and how can I give that to them in the best way possible. Speaking a little more to that flexibility, I think there's going to be a great opportunity to keep some of the virtual piece, even though we're still in session. So how do I have a small group with me in the classroom while I'm also setting up a video camera or my phone where kids can join a Google Meet so that we're all here together? And so really taking that flexibility and that blended learning model to that next phase and saying, how can I do this together for who's in front of me?
And I think also it's really important as we're approaching the start of the school year to look at the impact of trauma and trauma in the brain, looking at adverse childhood experiences. And so thinking about how do we build resilience in our children is something that we have to start day zero before school even reopens. And so having those meetings, having opportunities for kids to have some face-to-face via Google Meets. What we do at Belmont-Cragen is we've been hosting several hybrid events. They're called BCS Cares. And so we have families come, and maybe this week we're giving out lunches and books. Teachers have done Donors Choose grants where children are able to access resources they wouldn't have at home from the school. And so that's been a great way to kind of build in some academic support, but also have a sense of community during this time of separation. Again, it's really important to give kids space to use their power in this pandemic, and not just one pandemic of COVID-19, but also the pandemic of racism. And so children at this time are working on podcasts where they're talking about their experiences, they're writing, they're using video for reflection. And so I think from something so horrible has come out some really powerful practices that wouldn't have happened if we weren't forced in the situation. So that has to continue to build that resilient learner in the new year as it approaches.
That's beautiful, Stacy. Thank you. And yeah, I've really enjoyed seeing your BCS Cares things all over Twitter too. It's clear that you have the community really working together in a really beautiful way. So, and stay here, Stacy, because this next question is for you. Because the other, the other really vulnerable group are students with IEPs, and we've heard a great deal about the challenges in meeting special needs students, IEP goals, and how we just support them virtually at all. So can you talk a little bit about some of your challenges as well as your successes in supporting students who have diverse learning needs?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is just not being face-to-face. And when you have diverse learners who are accustomed to the sole provider of instruction is teacher X, not mom or grandma, and so that is a huge challenge for us. The other thing that we had to do was to really support in a different way our families with disabilities. And so one big thing is, again, schedules. So some students needed a visual schedule, so the teachers created visual schedules and they shared that with the parents so they can print them out and have them at home. We also had a lot of help desk opportunities for those families because the children may not have access to their email address, so they may forget the passwords. And so the teachers created these cheat sheets for the families. They helped them practice those routines. This is my password, this is what I do, and how to log in and how to interact with the content. But then they also gave them smaller group settings to work on their IEP goals, as well as push in time for inclusion. So that really helped a lot. Virtual IEP meetings, oh my goodness, I can't believe we accomplished that. But it was because of the team that, of clinicians, teachers all working together with the parent. And really, I think that was probably one of the best things that happened because we got to look in to the living rooms and the kitchens of where our children are coming from. And we're seeing the supports that are really needed in a way that we would not have seen before. And so I think that was one big thing, but also if the modus operandi didn't work, which is maybe Google Classroom, then maybe children needed something less demanding like Nearpod, where all they had to do is put in, swipe in a simple code, they didn't have to use email, and they can get access to content. They may need oral, more oral supports, those videos, recordings, those really did help a lot. But again, we're still trying to discern what is going to best meet the needs of the students. And I think a hybrid approach is probably the best for our diverse learners. And again, the clinicians now, at the beginning of the pandemic, they didn't have access to all the clinicians in a one-on-one. So they were working in a different way. But towards the end of remote learning, the clinicians were able to do sessions one-on-one for speech therapy, for social work. And so that really helped a lot. But again, it's still so much more to do. And that's what we're working on this summer with teacher teams.
Thanks, Stacy, because you know what I think we hear from you and is so much about how great leaders adapt and how great leaders help, you know, think of ways that are going to serve whatever student in whatever way, whether it's what the district told you to do or not. And so sometimes you've got to find that flexibility. You don't have to say that, I can't. Thank you. I have a question for the LEAP team here. So, you know, one of the key components of the personalized learning framework that you have is being learner connected. And there are two types of relationships I really want to kind of focus on here. One is both teacher to student and also peer to peer. How do you build or maintain those adult to student relationships and support peer to peer relationships at the same time in a virtual environment?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I've seen it from all fronts. Again, like I said, I'm a parent and also, you know, an educator as well. And so, you know, with our teachers, like teacher facing, a lot of our teachers that we've supported have had student conferencing. So one-on-one student conferencing, if possible. Also setting up like office hour times where, you know, they have an AM and a PM session where students can sign up and or their parents sign up for the students, for the little ones, and, you know, have some time like one-on-one with the teacher. We've also where, you know, for peer-to-peer relationships, I've seen some teachers also just set up a time where students can just hang out. And so I know for my daughter, they had lunchtime. So at 12 to 1, they can sign up anytime and log in and have lunch together. So everyone bring their lunches. They can talk about whatever. I know that at one point they also had, they watched their virtual talent show for their school. And so it was just a video created and they just watched it together. They also just watched a movie. So really it was just anything that they could talk about and just be together, and they signed in and out of there. So I think it's just really important for, you know, teachers to really utilize the learning management system, whether that is Zoom or, you know, in Chicago, it's Google, you know, the G Suite, and like really utilize that as much as they can so that students do feel connected with each other.
I'll just add on really quickly because Kristen talked about a lot of great things, both the connection with teachers and students, but peers as well. One of the things we really encourage at LEAP is the use of a learner profile where teachers get to know their students as students fill out sort of like a questionnaire about themselves, who they are as a person, who they are as a learner, who they are at home. And I actually worked with a couple of teachers during this pandemic who made affinity groups from the information that was on the learner profile and had students join a group similar to a lunch meetup that Kristen was talking about, where students had the opportunity to meet in a group where they could talk about similar things or they had similar interests. And so really just creating and providing a space for students to connect with each other, but also, again, using that data as that teacher to find those opportunities.
Thanks so much. And I've seen some teachers use those learner profiles really beautifully. Partially, I think, not so much how you were talking about to make those connections with one another, but to allow students to demonstrate their learning in different ways, which also makes them feel connected as if their teacher knows them, really. And so, yeah, having a learner profile that says, here's who I am, here's what I like, and say, okay, let's use this to demonstrate your learning. That's a beautiful competency approach way to do it. So thank you. All right, so we are nearing the end of our panel. So as we go ahead, you know, we don't know what's happening. There is still uncertainty. We don't know whether we're going to be all virtual. We don't know if we're going to be all in person. We don't know if there's going to be a hybrid of some sort coming up. So what advice do you have for our undergraduate Golden Apple Scholars who are watching right now as they prepare for the classroom?
I would say lead fearlessly and teach fearlessly. Don't be afraid of new learning. Don't be afraid to get to know your students. Don't be afraid to delve into uncharted territory of things that you may not have learned in your pre-course experience. And really take opportunities to grow in your professional community. I think this is the best time for young teachers and teachers coming up to collaborate, because no one person has all the answers, but collectively you guys can be a powerful force in the field of education that our kids really desperately need. And then more importantly, please take opportunities for self-care. We don't practice that, but that's something during this pandemic we saw was very important. So the same way that you give space to your children to reflect, to decompress, to meditate, you must also use yourself as a teacher. And with that, I think you'll be very, very reflective and renewed in this work.
I would have to say that, know the context of the community that you're serving. And, Stacy talked about it. So knowing who the students are, knowing just, the context surrounding the community. So the demographics, if there's a lot of stay-at-home parents, or they have other other family members taking care of the students. I think that's going to be really important as you start to build out instructional plans, and whether that's remote or in person, and who you're communicating to. And I think most importantly, like Stacey said it, like self-care, but also have fun. Like this is an opportunity for you to grow in your practice and enjoy education. Like we want you to be part of education. And I love working with teachers, and I have the biggest smile on my face when I'm working in the schools and with the leaders and with the teachers. So I, have fun as much as you can. And, like Stacey said, take care of yourself.
If I could add one thing that hasn't already been mentioned, because I would say yes to everything else. There is undoubtedly going to be something new each month, each week, each year, especially as we continue through this. So just be a learner. Use your platforms, do your research, but find things that are going to be fun for you, fun for the students, and what's going to work for you. So just always continue to learn. And I think, again, I'll reiterate that self-care is super important, but have fun.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Everyone in the community, I know you may be watching on YouTube and they can't see this, but since we've started these Zoom meetings, we do a lot of American Sign Language cheers for people. So if you're on screen right now, a big wave to Stacy and Connie and Kristen as they have provided a great view of what we may be facing and how to prepare for it. Thank you so much for your time. Now we're going to move on. Bye, thank you. Now we're going to move on to our next panel. And so I'm going to bring in Neil Grimes again. Neil.
Here we are, awesome. So I'm gonna introduce Rosie in a second here, but I did want to reference just some of the conversation that was going on in the chat, so we just want to be responsive to our learners. So this might be like a lot of information all at one time, especially like more of the expectations portion. So Kristen is going to add some times today at 6, tomorrow at 3, and then Wednesday at 6 to just have like an open session Q&A. I do want you to look at the All Sessions tab under the schedule portion. Your calendar should be set to you. So for example, if you're thinking about tomorrow, SI1, there is a session for career prep, but there shouldn't be anything mandatory for SIs 2 or SI3. SI3 might have an on-site, but your reflective leader will be able to talk to you about that. On Wednesday, the 8th, everyone will have some sort of class and reflective seminar, depending on the morning or the afternoon. But again, I'll go over those things more in detail today at 6, tomorrow at 3, and then Wednesday at 6 again. And I'll also try, if you email me your questions, I'll do my best to answer them today. But without further ado, we're really excited to introduce Rosie Patel, the manager of mentoring, who's going to introduce some teaching scholars.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to our Teaching Scholar panel. And I just want to take a second and piggyback on all of the wonderful things that our administrators said while Alan was moderating that panel. And going along with that, you know, remote learning has been at the top of every educator's list in thinking about, oh my gosh, we almost have no notice and we're completely redesigning what school looks like. And we have 24 hours to do it. And our teacher champions just did it. They Apollo 13 the entire problem. And, you know, kids are learning, children are being fed, needs are being met in the middle of this global crisis. And so to learn a little bit more about how some people handled this, some of our talented educators, teaching scholars, we have Ariana Sanders, Andre Rivera, Sarah Hill, and Christina Leone joining us. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you where they are joining us from, because we are coming from all over the state. And we'll talk a little bit more about what they have personally learned from this semester of remote learning and virtual learning. And so let's start off with Christina Leone. If you could tell us where you are joining us from, what do you teach, and what have you personally learned from this semester of virtual learning?
Hi, I'm Christina Leone. I work at Urbana Middle School as a 6th grade math teacher, and that's where I'm currently at right now, Urbana, Illinois, good old Central Illinois. I've learned a lot through remote learning, but I think the most relevant thing would have to be flexibility. I mean, during the school year, you have to be flexible in your classroom, and that was definitely evident during remote learning because this was something we were not expecting at all. And as a district, we didn't have any like one-to-one. So like the kids didn't have a lot of experience with like the Chromebooks, but I think that, you know, because of that, I had to think of different ways to get my material and resources out to my kids, and being flexible, like having to speak with parents, guardians. It just was an experience, and I definitely had to be more flexible than I was in the classroom because I had to go run things to kids who didn't have the resources, or maybe that I needed one-on-one time with a student and I would have like Zooms for that student. And so just being flexible was something that I definitely something that I learned.
Okay, let's take a turn and go over to Sarah. Tell us what you personally learned and where you're calling in from and what you teach.
My name is Sarah Hill. I am calling in from Olney, Illinois, which is in Southern Illinois, and I teach at Richland County Middle School. Our district is very different than those up north. Our entire county is a district. So we have a pre-K through 5th grade elementary school. I teach at the 6th through 8th middle school, and then we have a 9-12 high school. And those are the only 3 schools in our district. We did a lot with distance learning, and the biggest, I taught 6th grade math this past year, and this year I will be teaching STEM for 6th through 8th. So it's going to be a different time if we have to go to remote learning with STEM being so hands-on. The biggest thing that I took away from this and that I want other people to know is just to be creative. Like I was contacting students through TikTok sometimes because if I can't get a hold of their parents or I have to find a way to get to those kids, even if it's not the conventional way of getting to them. So.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. And let's go over to Andre, who is in a little bit of a different content area. Tell us where you're joining us from and what do you teach and what have you personally learned from this semester of virtual learning?
Awesome. Hey, I'm Andre Rivera. I am calling in from my parents' basement in Antioch, Illinois. So that's been a great help this whole entire kind of 3 months. But I was just teaching at North Chicago Middle School, Neal Math and Science Academy. I taught music, doing beginning band 6 through 8. Each grade level was a beginner, so everybody in that program was just starting out, as well as mariachi and general music. So transitioning to online learning was pretty difficult for some things. You can't capture everything. The experience of being in person is much different from music, but that didn't stop us. For me personally, I learned how just invaluable and essential that in-person instruction is, not only because it's important to have in-person instruction to model, but it's those relationships. The kids really, they didn't have those relationships. That made them lose motivation to complete their work. It was difficult to get them, in those high spirits, but through videos, making music online, me sharing some of my favorite recordings, and just really staying in contact with the parents, visiting the school, and making sure kids were still able to check out their instruments, because not everybody got to. It was just kind of like, all right, school's closed. Hope you took your instrument home. We made sure that we tried to get to as many students as we could. And I think that's what really helped the kids succeed during this time.
Thank you. And I just want to point out that Christina, Sarah, and Andre have just completed their first year of teaching in the classroom. What a tumultuous year. So congratulations to you guys on that. We are going to turn to Ariana, who has a bit more experience in the classroom, and she is going to speak more to what she has personally learned, tell us where she's calling from, and then as well as give us some communication strategies that she was able to use, knowing that she had some experience before we went to virtual learning, and this was year 4 of teaching, really. Ariana?
Hi there, my name's Ariana. I teach in Belvedere, at Belvedere High School, but I'm from Rockford, Illinois, and I teach social studies. I think the big takeaway that I had was those relationships that everyone was referring to, that kind of transferred over into my communication strategies. With high school kids, they like texting, so, I really make it a 4-point at the beginning of the school year to have students sign up for Remind. That was like our biggest tool we used throughout the remote learning period. But I also do a thing at the school year where I send home a postcard to every single parent and to every single student, just so I can see what the best form of communication is. Because usually once they get the postcard, they will either give me a phone call back at school, they'll either send me an email, or they'll relay that message to their student. Oh my gosh, wow, I got that little postcard in the mail just saying, hi, you're doing a great job. So then I can kind of jot down and see what is the best form of communication overall, and who are those kids that I need to maybe send something home on Friday with versus, send a mass email out. But in regards to communication during remote learning, I stuck to my usual routine that I do during the school year. So I send a Monday email out every single week with all the links of activities, with a brief overview of what we're doing this week and maybe a preview for next week, just so parents can know, hey, how can my student allocate their time, whether they're dealing with, some social emotional issues, maybe they don't need to focus on this class today, but just making sure I'm communicating with them what the expectations are and really keeping that same kind of structure that we had during the school year. I think that was the best form of communication that worked. And even parents started signing up for Remind too, so they could get that email while they were at work in the morning, or maybe later at night when they could check it when they got off work. So making sure you're keeping up with those same strategies.
Very nice. So I know they made it sound really smooth, but on March 13th, they all had to just append all their lesson plans, become these teacher champions, and go to virtual learning. And so on that note, just being aware, it is not all rainbows and lollipops. So let's ask the panel, do you feel that you had the tools and resources you needed to be a successful instructor in the virtual environment? And how did you rectify those situations where you felt that you were lacking resources? And this goes to any of you that want to take it.
I've got something. So this was something I didn't want it to be a reality, but I was in the back of my mind just preparing myself. What if we have to go away for a few weeks? Did not know that it would be the entire year. And we had to become a one-to-one school overnight. And that was difficult because we didn't really have it set up so that kids could have access to internet at home, let alone just have Chromebooks enough to go around for all the students. So for me personally, as a teacher, I think I had everything that I needed at home to teach from my computer. But for my kids, I don't think that the district was prepared enough to, switch to one-on-one. So to kind of rectify that and support in any way that I could, I was at school, one of the only teachers, along with administration, there to clean, sanitize Chromebooks, check them out to individual students, go out there, greet the students, hand them, their stuff with their backpack and their computer, and just really say like, hey, we're here for you. I'm your music teacher, but I'm also here making sure that you get all the rest of your stuff that you need for your, other core content, which it's all super important. And seeing that familiar face really helped them a lot. So I don't think our kids had everything that they needed, but we tried our best. I was there every day to make sure that I could get what they needed to them.
Kind of going off what Andre was saying, yeah, my school wasn't one-to-one either. And so like the whole first month of remote learning, it was basically getting those resources out to kids, all the Chromebooks. We were setting up hotspots in some of the areas where kids didn't have internet. We have our math resource book that I went into school, I labeled all of them, like kids came and picked those up. Luckily, a part of our curriculum is online, so a lot of our students knew how to get into their online portion for our iReady math curriculum. But also our book wasn't set up in a way that it would be very beneficial for them to learn that way. So I also had to make my own resources, and I had to kind of come up with like a whole new curriculum because it wasn't going to work the way that it was set up. And that's like kind of what I was talking about earlier about being flexible. Like I just was like, all right, none of this is going to work for the kids. They're not going to learn this way. I have to figure something else out. And, thankfully we were able to get Chromebooks out to the kids who needed them, but still there were some kids who just couldn't use the Chromebooks, who just didn't have internet at home. And so we would also send out paper copies and to kids. I personally would go to their house and drop them off, and parents really appreciated that. And I think that was like a good feeling, being able to like go out there and help them, and like how Andre was helping with sanitizing the computers and seeing them, like it always makes me feel better when I see them too. So yeah, no, I didn't really have all the tools and resources. I don't think any of us really did, but we made it work. We're teachers. We work with what we're given.
Yeah, going along with them as well. Our school, because it is so big of a district, or covers as much ground as we do, we don't have Wi-Fi in some areas. Even though the parents could afford to get the internet, their house is so out in the middle of nowhere that they had no access to internet. So they had to drive to places to go get internet, or our internet connections were so slow that if you had multiple people working on it in the same house, then it was going to be so slow. So we ended up sending out packets once a week. They could either pick them up at our school, which was actually a food drop-off place where parents could go pick up their food for the week, and then we also sent out the PDF versions of the packets. But our school district focused a lot on the basic needs, making sure these kids are safe, making sure that they are fed. That was our biggest concern, and we just wanted to make sure that was the biggest thing.
I would agree with what majority of my colleagues said. Our school district is one-to-one, but I think the biggest issue, again, like most of you have said, with equity, a lot of kids, I could give them a Chromebook, but they don't have the internet, so what is really the purpose? And then also thinking about our school district, we have a lot of students who have younger siblings and their parents are those essential workers. So knowing that you're more concerned about like making sure your brother, your sister, your cousins, whoever's living in your house is fed and they're outside playing and happy versus doing this math assignment. Like that's more important to me, that you're happy and healthy versus doing every single assignment during remote learning. So even though my district did have the resources, I think I was more concerned about making sure my students' social and emotional needs are met versus getting the work done.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ariana. Those are important things for us to think about. Equity, as well as just, making sure your needs are met. Maslow's hierarchy trumps our ability to do anything with Bloom's taxonomy. And so thinking about that, what would you say were the most common barriers that you saw to academic progress? Again, goes out to all of you.
I would say the most common barrier was that like social piece. Like it was nice to get on Zoom and see one another, but it's vastly different than like being in the classroom and that proximity and, you know, a part of your regular routine. That's what the kids really missed. I sent out a survey every week just to like see what the kids were up to, like, oh, what is your favorite hobby right now? Or like, what's the snack you've been eating the most while you were at home? And just like those little things that we do already in the classroom, kind of bringing that to remote learning just so they could still keep, you know, their morals high, you know, not be so down and out. Because I had one student mention, you know, being at home was my safe space to get away from school. But now that school is at my house, I'm super undermotivated. So knowing that that wasn't an impediment for some of the kids was really big too.
I agree with what Ariana was saying. A lot of my students said very similar things to that, as in they would say, you know, school is my safe space from home, and being at home makes it hard to learn. And I had a lot of students who struggled with being in the class. And then when remote learning happened, they're like, I miss being in class, I miss doing this. And so it's definitely like they didn't realize what they had until it was gone type thing. And I think we all kind of can relate to that. And so, yeah, that social aspect was something that my kids definitely struggled with. And I think just like having someone there with you and like, and I teach middle schoolers, so these kids sometimes need a lot of guidance. And so without that, you know, it's really hard for them. And so I think that's another thing. And like we were saying, like, you know, personal home situations, like if their parents are working all these like working jobs and there's no one to take care of their siblings, yeah, they're going to take care of their siblings rather than do the math assignment or the science assignment or whatever it is. So I think, you know, those were definitely struggles for my students.
Kind of branching off both of those as well, the distractions in the home were so big for these kids. They had to deal with younger siblings, they had to deal with just everything that was going on. And so their attention spans were so narrowed compared to what they even were at school. I left my Zoom meetings to 30 minutes 3 times a week. That was all I got with my kids. And so whenever I did get those Zoom meetings, I cherished them and the kids cherished them, but it was completely different than being in that classroom.
For me and for music, a big barrier was probably in my community, the language barrier, understanding, you know, a lot of these programs are not in Spanish. A lot of the online materials aren't readily translated in Spanish. And just setting up accounts for the first time and walking families through that was a very difficult task. So I had to do a lot of screen sharing, a lot of, you know, on the phone, walking them through it because maybe they didn't have Wi-Fi or they didn't have a strong enough connection to do like FaceTime kind of thing. But that was difficult to get past. And it really forced us to improvise and do some lessons just on the phone, you know. I would not like to give trumpet lessons over the phone with no video, but you know what? If we have to, that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna make the best of it.
Nice. So going off of what Andre responded, let's think about how did you eventually end up navigating communication with parents so that they have that digital literacy and the skills needed to navigate this whole remote learning business?
I created a lot of videos, a lot of how-to videos, which I thought was super helpful. And I even sent out a survey to parents. I'm a big fan of surveys. I love the feedback. But creating how-to videos. So instead of having those assignments we would do regularly in class or whatever, I just created like one big project. I'm like, I want you to focus on one last hoorah. And I just communicated that to parents and say, you know, I want your child to just message me maybe like twice a week. I want you to spend maybe 30 minutes twice a week really focusing on social studies. And I want you to spend majority of the other time like thinking about how are you managing your emotions and things like that. Because again, before you can bloom, you got to make sure that all those Maslows are met. So that communication was really helpful to parents because some of them, when they got off work, they could say, hey, now I have time to sit down and work with John on his assignment or whatever. So really making sure that we're thinking about our students as little humans versus, like, oh, we have this class 5 times a week, you need to be working for like 15 minutes. Just really thinking about that human aspect and communicating that to students and parents on a regular basis. I think that was very helpful.
I know somebody mentioned earlier about having office hours, and my office hours were really not office hours. They pretty much contacted me any day, minute of any day. I had students emailing me at 1 a.m. some days, because that was the time that their parents had time to sit down with the kids, or they finally got off of their video games. So it was actually kind of nice because some of these parents, even though we have different ways for them to view like Skyward, which is their grades and everything, parents never really sat down to learn this until now. And so now that they know how to do all of this, it's going to be easier from now on for other things.
Yeah, like Sarah said, I had students dropping in on my office hours that I didn't even teach, that I would just see in the hallways. And I'm like, how did you even get this Google Meet like code? But it was super important because they're like, hey, Mr. Rivera, like, this has been happening and all of that. And I'm like, that's really cool. It's nice to have a familiar set of ears to talk to. I was a little confused at times, but you know what? I think it really helped out the kids.
Yeah, I did a lot of videos too with math. It's like just a lot of practice and doing problems. So I did those, and I think parents appreciated those. I definitely talked to parents a lot more during remote learning. I was always calling them. I remember like talking to a parent and be like, oh, like so-and-so hasn't gotten logged in. And she'd be like, she's been on the computer all day. How is she not doing any of the work? And then, then she would tell her to do the work, and they would start doing it. And so it's always that communication and just like being honest, because some of these kids, they'll get away with it if you don't say anything about them not doing the work. So those videos, and how Andre was saying how like some of my old kids would get like the Google Classroom Meet link and come try to like be in our Zoom meeting, and I'm just like, how did you guys even get this? But then I remembered, oh, like I set up an Instagram just for my students, and I would post on there in case they didn't see their email, because I know they're always on Instagram, and some of my former students follow me on there, so I'm like, oh, okay, that's how they got the link then. But yeah.
That was one other thing. My district made sure that we were contacting and talking to somebody in the household at least once a week. We really wanted to get contact with those kids, make sure everything was going okay. I know we even had to go and look for some students at some points because we hadn't heard from them. And that's kind of a little scary at times, but knowing that our kids are missing. But we ended up finding them and everything was okay. But just making those contacts are very, very important.
So we are going to start wrapping up. This is going to be the last question. And a lot of what you guys have talked about has been really just like the struggle of a teacher, right? Like not knowing where your kids are, and the way you guys are like, I made videos, I did this, like those are the things that like melt my heart. I'm so grateful that you guys are the type of scholars that will do that, like go to all ends to make sure that you're able to be there for your kids. And one of the biggest things that's come out of this semester of virtual learning is that it has catalyzed a lot of change in education. And there were all of these barriers before, like we can't be one-to-one, or we can't do this remotely. And the role of a teacher, all of that has evolved overnight. So virtual and remote learning has catalyzed a lot of change. And I just want you guys to kind of close out thinking about, how do you think education is changing? Big picture.
I would say that learning is becoming more meaningful, is becoming more practical. I always tell my kids, since I teach social studies, I ask them, like, what's your story? Like when you leave here, is it nice that you can tell me, you've memorized what day the Boston Massacre is? I mean, that's nice, but is it more important that you can tell me, what social issues came about, or how to leave here with empathy and with sympathy and listening to perspective? So I think it's the personalization of learning, the individual like learning plan, and preparing students for the real world and really changing what we've always done now what kids need to know how to do before they leave the classroom. I think that is what's really changing and making learning more meaningful.
I agree with Ariana. The personalized learning is a huge trend that I think needs to continue, and something that's more towards music specific, but also addresses a lot of different disciplines, is how inclusive and responsive our teaching is becoming towards our communities. In education, music education in particular, I see it all the time now coming up, which used to just be a small conversation with a few of my colleagues that I knew and friends growing up, to now you're having big talks about challenging the curriculum, tradition, making changes that are responsive to large movements that are happening, and just the conversation of decolonizing the classroom. So I think this is a really, pivotal time in education. A lot of us, I'm sure, are spending a lot of time at home thinking about that and how we're going to implement those things in the fall. But that, to me, that's a change I think we can all get on, especially as Golden Apple educators.
I agree. Education is changing so many different ways, and we saw it change literally in a blink of an eye after these past months. And I'm doing summer school now too, so I'm still, learning and growing and still figuring out how to use Google Classroom. We're all learning, and that's something. And personally, my school has focused a lot on trauma sensitive classrooms and restorative practices. And I think this is something that's huge, and I think it's going to continue to grow. And, I always say, practice makes perfect. So we're still learning, we're still growing. And I think that's something that we're going to emphasize a lot next year. If, we're going back into the classroom, I think that we really have to focus in on, what kids went through during this time, especially in Black and Brown communities, which are heavily affected by COVID-19. And so I think that these are conversations that we're going to have with our students before we start talking about math, before we start talking about science. These are the conversations that we have to have with them, because, this is a lot for everyone. And these kids are learning how to go through the motions. They're dealing with their emotions, and, they go to school to help talk to people about their emotions, and maybe they're not getting that at home. So I'm hoping that education does turn more into a conversation with students and really figuring out what their needs are.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming and speaking on this panel. I don't have the words to tell you how proud I am for seeing how you just kind of battled this unknown. And this is the wonderful thing about teachers, is that, they always get asked, were you prepared to go and teach remotely? Were you prepared to do A, B, and C? And it's not that we're prepared for each specific situation, it's that we're prepared to handle that unknown. And you guys did this masterfully, and we cannot be any prouder than we are. It's just so emotional to see how you are successful. And I was there seeing Christina, and she's like, I'm making a video. And to see how you have advocated for your students is amazing. And I think that is representative of how teachers are, particularly scholars. And I said this at the beginning, and this holds true. It's like, hey, you have this crazy situation and you just Apollo 13 it. Sorry guys, I have to put that NASA reference in there. But there is no better analogy. So thank you, and thank you to all of the teacher champions who just handled remote learning the way that we handle anything else that comes our way. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate all the panelists from today. It's really inspiring to kind of hear your stories and how you help support learners during this difficult time. One thing that I really appreciated about my Scholar Institute experience when I was in college was just, hearing from leaders in the field, and then I could start to see myself and how I could be successful in the classroom. So I really appreciate you guys sharing your insight, and good luck next year. So before we kind of make another transition into reflective seminar, I do want to introduce one other Golden Apple colleague. Before we do that, though, I just want to kind of restate how you find that link. So if you log into the web portal that Kristen was describing, on the left-hand side, there is your schedule. If you click on all sessions, your reflective seminar meeting will be there. If you open that up, there's going to be a link that says join. And that's how all of your classes are set up. So when you go to class on Wednesday and you have a cultural competency course, you'll log in, all sessions, click on the date, and then click the link. That's how we're going to access all of our sessions this year. Very similar to last year where you looked at the app to find the location of a classroom. Now we're just clicking links. It's going to be great. So Jasmine Jones, Manager of Placement and Alumni Relations, you have a special treat for us before we transition to our reflective seminar. After the video though, it's over, opening ceremonies is over. You're going to go to your first reflective seminar. So take a deep breath, just focus in on building those relationships during that hour. So Jasmine, are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Neil. So hello, scholars. Thank you all so much for coming, and so thankful for the panelists. You all were amazing from the morning to this afternoon. My name is Jasmine Jones. I am the Manager of Placement and Alumni Relations. So you guys should be familiar with my director, Talia Raymer. So you guys will be hearing from us about placement, as well as when you get to 5 years plus of teaching with the alumni department. So this is a special treat for you all from our Alumni Relations Committee. So I hope you all enjoy.
One moment, just some technical issues. My apologies.
Have you ever wondered why you are here?
You are the only you there has ever been or will ever be.
So much to offer. Maybe you will invent something that no one has ever seen before.
Maybe you will build things that reach high into the sky.
Your life is yours.
Try as many things as you can try.
See as much as you can see.
Wherever you go, take your hopes, pack your dreams, and never forget it is on journeys that discoveries are made.
Maybe you will help others to see the beauty in each day.
Do everything with love.
Follow your heart and see where it leads you.
Maybe you are here to shine a light into places that have been dark for far too long.
Maybe you will speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves.
Maybe you are here to help in ways that only you can.
There will be struggles, there will be fears, and it won't always be easy.
At times it will feel really hard.
And you might make a mess of things.
And you may fall down. And you may fail.
But you will also get back up and you will rise a little stronger and a little taller.
Because there's really more inside you than you know.
And this world needs your gifts, your talents, and your big ideas.
And maybe you are just getting started.
What if you are only scratching the surface of what you can do and what you can be?
What if you have talents you haven't discovered yet?
There's something powerful, even magical about you.
You already have what it takes to do big things.
Maybe you have no idea just how good you really can be.
And maybe you don't know how much you matter.
But maybe, just maybe, the world has been waiting centuries for someone exactly like you.
One thing is for sure.
You are here, and because you are here, anything is possible.
Because I had a teacher, I love to learn.
Discovered that I can do much more than I thought I could.
I realized it's okay that some things are harder than others.
I found that challenges.
Because I had a teacher, I discovered that there are other ways of being smart.
And I know that mistakes are just part of getting something right.
I realized that some of the hardest things for me to do made me feel the proudest.
Because I had a teacher, I know how good it feels when someone is happy to see me.
I know that I can always ask for help.
I feel like I have a friend on my side.
I learned that some of the most important things are said without words.
Because I had a teacher, I have whole new worlds to explore.
I discovered that what I can't imagine, I can make real.
And now I feel like I can do anything.
Because I had you, I learned to believe me.
All right, morning group, thanks so much for being here. You're gonna leave YouTube, you're gonna click on that link in the all sessions portion, and you're gonna be in your first reflective seminar. Have a great day. Talk to you guys later.